In 1965, Dr. Harry Angelman was on vacation in Verona, Italy, when he came across a curious painting at the Castelvecchio Museum. The smiling expression of the child in the painting and the drawing he held in his hands reminded him of 3 patients who had recently been admitted to the hospital where he worked in England. Upon analyzing the painting and studying the behaviors of his patients, he realized that this smile and seemingly innocent drawing were not as innocent as they appeared. This child, like his patients, had a very curious syndrome, which he would name Happy Puppet Syndrome. In this video, we will investigate how this doctor discovered the disease through a 500-year-old painting and attempt to solve the mysteries of this strange Renaissance portrait. Let's begin. In the Renaissance, a portrait as unusual as Portrait of a Child with a Drawing by Giovanni Francesco Caroto had never been seen before. This work, painted in 1515 and considered his most famous masterpiece, is unique because the child depicted in the foreground seems to engage directly with the viewer, wearing a joyful and relaxed expression as he proudly displays his drawing. It is a child's drawing, reminiscent of those all children enjoy making on a simple piece of paper and then eagerly show to adults, hoping for praise. However, Caroto could not have known that this child was ill, and that his drawing would be crucial in diagnosing his disease 500 years later. The child's smile, though subtle, is considered by some to be unsettling. Unlike how smiles were typically portrayed by artists of that era, Caroto dared to paint the child's mouth slightly more open, even revealing the upper arch of his teeth. As we can see here, the smile of the Mona Lisa is far more subtle than that of Caroto's child. Another mystery of this painting is the identity of the child, which has yet to be definitively determined. Some say it is his son, Bernardino, born between 1505 and 1507, who was orphaned by his mother and later became a pharmacist in the family apothecary alongside his father from 1529 onward. Another possibility is that it could be his nephew, Giovanni Pietro, also a painter and known as Centenario, born around 1503, who worked in the family workshop and was recorded in the 1531 census. The presence of young people or children in paintings was not new. Paintings featuring cherubs, putti, or the infant Jesus were abundant, but this painting holds particular significance as one of the earliest to depict a child in a realistic manner. Far from an idealized portrait, it is quite the opposite. It shows a proud child looking at the viewer to display a drawing he has created himself, perhaps even a self-portrait. And that is another element that makes this painting special. It showcases a scribble made by a child almost 500 years ago. If we look closely at the drawing, we can see that it is not very different from what a child today might create. It's a scribble in the shape of a man, which could be a self-portrait or even a portrait of Caroto himself. Dr. Harry Angelman, a pediatrician who was on vacation in Italy in 1965, was the first to notice something unusual about this painting, which he connected to 3 patients he had recently seen at the hospital where he worked in England. As he described,
I eventually became aware that amongst these children there were 3 rather special children who I suspected were all suffering from the same condition, but this had never been described in the pediatric literature. I thought about them for a long time, and one day when I was in Verona, I had really gone to see the open-air opera in the Arena. I went during the afternoon to a museum called the Castelvecchio Museum in Verona, and walking through the various rooms I saw a picture on an easel which immediately struck me very forcibly. It was a medieval oil painting by an artist called Caroto, and it showed a young boy with a laughing, cheeky face, and he was holding a drawing that he had made of a puppet, and it was entitled Boy with a Puppet. And that picture seemed to crystallize the view of the boy laughing, and the word puppet seemed to crystallize the cases of these 3 children, because they too had puppet-like movements, They laughed a lot, and it was that really which prompted me, it made me decide that I would publish those cases, even though the publication might be criticized.
From that moment on, Dr. Angelman would associate the innocent smile of this child with a curious syndrome that affects 1 in 20,000 children. But what exactly does this disease do to children? How was this doctor able to link a smile to such a strange condition? Before answering these questions, I want to remind you that you can now have a painting like this in your own home. In our catalogue, you'll find over 300 paintings that I've personally selected so you can have a piece of art just as intriguing as the one you're seeing in this video. You have the option to choose the size you want, and you can also purchase it as a fine art print canvas or framed canvas. Additionally, you can get it as a phone case so you can protect your phone while carrying a masterpiece in your pocket. Shipping is free worldwide, so once you finish watching this video, I invite you to visit the website and place your order. I'm sure you'll find the perfect piece of art for you. The link will be in the description. In the case of the painting, as Dr. Angelman previously mentioned, what caught his attention the most was the child's smile in the portrait. One of the most notable behaviors in the 3 children who had arrived at his hospital was their unusually cheerful demeanor, with frequent laughter and smiles. This condition also includes intellectual and developmental disabilities, sleep disorders, seizures, and jerky movements. Due to this last aspect, Dr. Angelman decided to name this syndrome Happy Puppet, as he associated the name of the painting exhibited in the Castelvecchio Museum with the way the children in the hospital walked, leading him to choose this name. However, he soon had to rename it Angelman syndrome, as the parents of these children did not agree with the original name, feeling that it somehow ridiculed these young children. Another important consideration in this painting is the drawing the child is holding. Though simple, almost rudimentary, it suggests a lack of advanced artistic skill, similar to what we might see in children with developmental disabilities. In the case of Angelman syndrome, children typically experience significant delays in cognitive and motor development, which could be reflected in the basic nature of the drawing. Furthermore, while the painting cannot capture movement, the representation of the child with a disordered drawing could be interpreted as a reference to the jerky movements also common in patients with Angelman syndrome. These movements often lead to difficulties in performing fine motor tasks, such as drawing. Although there is no direct evidence that the child in the painting has the syndrome, this painting has become the quintessential work for explaining certain aspects of Angelman syndrome. In my opinion, it seems difficult to diagnose a child based on this information. Although we have seen that such portraits were uncommon during the Renaissance, and it is very likely that this child was smiling because he wanted to show his creation to the master Caroto, what is undeniable is that Dr. Angelman saw in this painting an inspiration for his work. To this day, this syndrome is still recognized by the medical community, and thanks to this work, Dr. Angelman was able to connect the behaviors of 3 children who initially did not appear to have any specific illness. By analyzing their behaviors, he discovered that these children, like the child in this painting, shared one common symptom: the smile. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this painting and whether you agree with Dr. Angelman's diagnosis. Don't forget to leave a like if you found this video interesting, and subscribe so you don't miss out on 2 analyses like this every week. At inspiraggio.com, you'll find the store to place your order, and don't forget to follow me on my social media if you want to see more art-related content. See you in the next video. Bye.